how did you find all the footage? How did you acquire all the footage? And what were some of the difficulties in compiling probably 15, 20 different formats?
Threats of violence. Coercion was involved in some of that.
Yeah, with John, I met some very powerful people that had guns, and it became really easy to get all that footage from all these people that I didn't know, so that's kind of how it happened. I learned a lot from watching this archival footage from the old days. John Fenton with the, it's not an AK-47 in it, but I mean, the archival footage I found, I don't know, let's talk about the first Burning Man. It's not the first Burning Man, it's Burning Man 1988, the footage that's on there. And I was interviewing Jerry, and after the interview, we're having a chat, and he's like, oh, by the way, I've got some tapes here, and that's the tapes of Burning Man 1998. And I'm like, why haven't you told me right away that there is this there? Michael had collected a lot of footage, and he shared some with me. The pictures, John, that he has collected also over the years, he shared with me, and I made that documentary over 5 years, so I met a lot of people, and I found footage here and there, so it was a lot of digging, and a lot of other people had done a lot of digging also before me, so I took advantage of that.
Well, thank you for all the digging. The other thing I definitely noticed with the film, and I've seen a lot of Burning Man documentaries, is and the one thing I mentioned to you earlier, is that I really loved the score. The music of the film really accentuated the scenes and gave it a feeling instead of just the permeation of electronic music that keeps us awake all day long. So I really enjoyed that, and would you tell us a little bit about your composer?
Yeah, Sam is a good friend of mine, and a French guy who lives in our school also, and he's never really, he's a really good musician, but he never really made any music of his own, and I kind of pushed him to make a score here. And the editor actually was really good also at integrating that sound and actually cutting some of his songs down to make it match. What was interesting is I showed the movie to Sam, and he started to make some music, and the editor took the songs that he had made for some segments and put it in some completely other places to actually create that atmosphere. Both of them did a great job at that.
So the question was, when did theme camps evolve?
The theme camps, the first theme camp was called BARC, Bolt Action Rifle Club, and it was there in 1990, the first year we were on the desert. We had friends, Kerry Galbraith and a fellow named Eric and a bunch of other folks who dressed up in period costume from French Revolution, military garb, and had period weapons, and would sit there drinking their tea under parasols and shoot at things off on the periphery. And that was the first theme camp. And then the one that really kind of got people going was a Christmas camp a year or two later that Peter Doherty from the Cacophony Society put together, where he did basically a very involved Christmas themed camp where he was Santa Claus, and I think part of it was so the girls would sit in his lap, but the other part was just it's so out of place having Santa Claus in the desert. And one of the things that was so great about the early event, and I guess it still happens, I don't know, I haven't been there in a million years, but the earlier event is that just having things in the desert that were completely not expected. Like 3 Days Double, which was the band that was playing underneath the Doghead with the neon halo, was not the kind of band or the kind of music you'd think you'd hear in the Black Rock Desert. You'd hear some kind of Moroccan theme music or something, but they were nerd rock and very strange, out of place there in a certain way. And I always like that sort of discordant aspect to the event. I guess it still happens. Somebody else could probably comment on what's happening now.
When was your last year?
My last year was 1996. I've been involved in the event for 7 years, and it was a great 7 years. A great 6 years and a terrible 1 year.
Come back!
This whole audience will sit here and try to convince you to come back.
And the reason why I didn't include the theme camps, there's a lot to talk, and so many other characters to talk about, and if I started to stretch a story, it would not make sense, and so many other voices I would have liked to include. But the one that I really cherish because I went through it was the one of the Flaming Rose Girls, and I thought they represented a lot of what was happening in other places, in other camps, in other groups. And I stayed with them for 5 years, and I filmed them a lot, and I wanted to put that piece in the film to represent through them that collaboration that a lot of people go through at Burning Man. So that's kind of how, I mean, I didn't talk about DPW, I didn't talk about a lot of other things at Burning Man, and I hope I represented everybody well through that one example of the Flaming Rose Girls. So that's what I tried to do.
Maybe we need Destin Illusions too.
The concept of theme camps has actually evolved over time. Defining what a theme camp is, the roots go way back into Cacophony Society, going into a space, transforming it into something else. So the small increments that became theme camps are rooted in way, way past history.
Yeah, theme camps really seem to be like family units. They're like little villages. At least that's what they've evolved in over the years since I've been going. I started going after John stopped going, so I started in '98.
Yeah, I'd just like to say too that the whole idea around around Leave No Trace was something that was pioneered in the Suicide Club in the late '70s by Gary Warren and the folks who started that group. And that was an urban exploration group, and just most of the events took place in the city, although not all of them. And that idea, along with a lot of the other philosophies that came to infuse themselves into Burning Man, came through the Suicide Club and came through Cacophony Society later. And the Leave No Trace was the main one. I mean, the idea, we'd be sneaking into abandoned buildings or climbing the Golden Gate Bridge or something, and we'd make it as though we were never there. We'd leave nothing, take nothing, and it's like we were never there. And there were a variety of reasons for doing that, and some of that transferred later into the desert event. I think it kind of filters down through, because most of the people who took the event out to the desert the first year, I'd say 70% of them were Cacophony. Probably half of those have been in the Suicide Club. So, and then that was a big influence. And that's my interest, is like kind of, and one of the things I'm really glad about Olivier doing is pointing out, like I said, the history and where a lot of these ideas did come from, because they didn't come from certain other places.
Exclusivity versus inclusivity, and why there isn't another Burning Man going on to include everyone.
Well, for people who do desire a smaller version of that experience, you know, it's up to you or your friends to make it. And there are lots of them going on. Some of them publicized, some of them not publicized. I certainly wouldn't think it's the duty of the people who operate under the brand name of Burning Man to destroy themselves by running two multi-tens of thousand person events. Because once you get over about 4,000, it's pretty much the same as far as I'm concerned.
And you'll be sued if you call it Burning Man.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, there more exclusive versions of that experience do exist, and some of them are easy to find, some of them not so easy.
And just so you guys know, October 1st is LA Decompression. We will be back in the park for the next 2 years, guaranteed. And no, the high-speed rail is not going through the park. That will never happen. Not that park. Anywhere else, but not that park. So we will be back in the park. So bring it.